Right, back live tonight, here on In Focus. Justice Minister Ronald Lamola has agreed to reopen an inquest into the deaths of anti-apartheid activists Chief Albert Luthuli, Mlungisi, Griffiths, Mxenge, and Booi. It follows representations made to the National Director of Public Prosecutions, which raised that in 1967 the inquest did not consider certain mathematical and scientific principles. Chief Albert Luthuli's grandson, Mthunzi, joins us now in studio for more on that. Good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to the viewers.
The Minister has accepted the recommendations by the NPA to reopen the inquest. I mean, first and foremost, as a family, what does that say to you, and how long have you been calling for this?
Yeah. Thabo, you know, to the family, this is a bittersweet moment. Sweet first because, you know, finally, the inquest will be opened and the truth will be told. Yep. Okay, and hopefully we'll be able to erase the lies that the apartheid government told. Okay. But it's bitter in the sense that it has taken a long time. And in our view, it didn't have to take this long. And we've been at this for more than 25 years. And in that time period, you know, some of the people who are implicated in the murder of Chief Luthuli have died, you know. And so, you know, we probably won't see full justice. So that is the bitter part of it. But overall, we are pleased that finally this is happening.
There is what the 21st of September inquest says happened under the apartheid regime. There is what you, as the family, believes would have happened on the 21st of July in 1967. How different are these from the official reports to what you believe would have happened on the ground?
Very different, Thabo. Let me just give you a few differences. Yeah. One, the apartheid government said that Chief Luthuli was knocked down by a train because he couldn't see. And he couldn't hear. He was deaf or close to being deaf. And that's why he couldn't hear the train. Now, those two are just complete lies. As a family, you would know whether someone is deaf or not. Yeah. You would know whether someone can see or not. Yes. And the family knew that Chief Luthuli was neither deaf nor blind. Yeah. Okay. Also, on that day, if you are skeptical and you say, well, what else would the family say? On that day, Chief Luthuli woke up in the morning and left the house at about 6:30 to go to his shop, okay? Yeah. He walked, he took a bus, he walked again, got to the shop, made sure that the shop is open, that the manager was there, they had a meeting, and then after that, he was then walking to his sugarcane fields, right. Okay, to see to it that the workers were doing their work and, you know, talk to his indunas and all of that. Yeah. Yeah. Now, how can a deaf and a blind person
be conducting meetings and be walking around
and be walking all alone, unassisted? You know, so the whole story was just a fabrication. You know, and because in those days, you know, these things couldn't be challenged properly because, you know, everything was just a whitewash. So the story stuck, and there were no opposing views that were entertained. Okay.
Did he use that particular station, Gladthrow Station, at any point? Was that a familiar place that he would go to?
Yeah. So Gladthrow Station is situated between the shop, which is called Nonhlevu Trading Store, and that ultimately became our home. Yeah. And the sugarcane fields where he was going. So for him to get to the sugarcane fields, he would leave the shop and walk past the station, the railway station, and then cross the bridge, the Mvoti River Bridge, which was a railway bridge, to get to the sugarcane fields. In fact, there were two cane fields. There was one which was before the bridge, and there were some that were on the other side of the bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, leaders of the African National Congress...
So just to complete to answer your question fully, he walked past that station very often.
Very often, yeah. So it wouldn't have been the first time that he would have walked
past he'd done it many times.
Yeah. Leaders of the African National Congress, including former President Thabo Mbeki, has now come out to say it's a good thing that this inquest is going to be opened. And do you see this going the way of the other Truth and Reconciliation inquests that have been done in terms of what is going to be the outcome of whatever the findings are?
Look, from a procedural perspective, yes, I think that it's going to be... So it's probably going to be similar to the Timor case. As to exactly what the outcome is going to be, we don't know. You know, we would be purely speculating. Yeah. But I am almost 100% sure that the lies that were told by the apartheid government will be shown to be lies, and that the real truth will come out. And as you said in the introduction, you know, experts, you know, scientists, mathematicians, engineers, pathologists, neurosurgeons, they've all been assembled to look at the matter, and they have all said that the story that the apartheid government told is highly, highly unlikely.
That's what I wanted to come to say, I mean, looking at the time lapse, looking at particular witnesses that would have passed on and perpetrators that would have passed on as well at this particular point, is the family assembling a team of experts that will include forensic type people who will be able to gather this evidence and be able to put a piece of this story together?
Yeah. So these experts have already been assembled, they've already worked, they've already produced reports. Okay. They were doing this with the NPA. Remember, for the minister to decide that an inquest should be reopened, there needs to be sufficient evidence that the results of the first inquest were probably incorrect.
Right.
Yeah. And so you have to establish that evidence before the inquest is reopened, because that becomes part of the submissions that the NPA then takes to the Ministry of Justice to say, look, what was said about this incident or this accident or the death of this person was wrong. And the reason we say that it was wrong or it was highly unlikely is because of X, Y, and Z. And here is the evidence, or here are the reports of the experts. So that work has already been done.
Is that information pointing to particular perpetrators? Are they clearly identified? By perpetrators, I mean, one, a crime would have been committed, but two, a cover-up would have also pursued.
Yeah. Okay. Firstly, there was definitely a crime. Okay. And I'll give you just two examples of why there's no doubt that this was a crime, okay, and not an accident. Firstly, the apartheid government at the time said that Chief Luthuli was knocked down by a train. Now, if you get knocked down by a train, you become mincemeat. You know, especially the way that the train driver described how the whole thing happened. He said that Chief Luthuli walked towards the train in the middle of the railway track. Now, if you do that and the train knocks you down, you will be almost
Unidentifiable.
Unidentifiable, exactly. It would be mincemeat.
Yeah.
But Chief Luthuli had one major injury. It was a big gash that ran from the top of his head all the way down to the back of his head, okay?
Sure.
To the bottom part of it. That was the main injury. Other than that, there were 2 or 3 bruises on the on his upper body. Nothing serious.
The rest of the limbs still intact?
Everything else was intact. So it's clear that he was struck by something from the back. You see? So that's the first reason. But the second one is that at some point I was in Mxenge, which is the town nearest to Groundville.
Yeah.
And I was with my father. And, you know, he looked a bit upset in the car. We're in the car. And then I said to him, what's wrong? Why you look upset? And then he started relating the story that a white man had just approached him. And this white man asked him, you know, are you Luthuli's son? And he said, yes. And this man said, would you like to know how your father died? And my father said, yes, I'd like to know. Very puzzled. And then this man said, it's a white Afrikaner. It said, how much are you willing to pay me? So my father got angry and told him to bugger off, okay? Which I think was a natural reaction, you know, for anybody really, you know, whose father had been so gruesomely killed. But what that incident showed, you know, or indicated to us, one, it was further confirmation that in fact there was another real story, another truth, the real truth, yes, you know, behind Mkhulu's death. The second thing that it told us was that if this thing was known by a white Afrikaner man, that it was most likely linked to the government, or maybe it was just a hate crime. But I don't think it was a hate crime. I tend to believe the former, that it was a planned and executed by the apartheid government. And my reason is the following. A year prior to Mkhulu's death, Senator Robert Kennedy visited Groundville because he had come on a visit to South Africa, and he went and he saw student organizations and NUSAS and all of them. But before he left, he said he's going to Groundville to see Chief Luthuli. Now, Chief Luthuli was under a house ban at the time. And you know, this had been the order of the day for him. And Kennedy said he cannot leave South Africa without seeing Chief Luthuli because he believes that Chief Luthuli is the one person who truly represents the opinions and the voices of the people.
Yes.
So the apartheid government tried to stop him, but they couldn't. I mean, he was Senator Robert Kennedy. He insisted. So he went, took a helicopter from Durban, he landed in Groundville, and they had a meeting with Chief Luthuli. Now, I think that from that point onwards, the apartheid government started planning to kill him because they had been trying to silence him all of this time. You know, Chief Luthuli was always under, if he wasn't in prison, you know, he was under house arrest or, you know. But what was happening, and especially between the treason trial in 1966, the coming of Robert Kennedy, he was, it was ban after ban after ban. But the ANC had remained steadfast that this is our president, even though the ANC was already in exile at the time. And here now comes a senior member of the US government and comes and says they want to see Chief Luthuli. And I think they realize that, look, it looks like we're failing to silence this man. And the only way that we can really silence him is by killing him. And I think that's why his death happens soon after the visit by Robert Kennedy.
Yeah. This is, of course, now happening at a time when we are looking at 30 years into our democracy, and there are lots of challenges within the party that he was president of. And does it make it more difficult for the family to reopen this particular wound?
It does. It does. For the family and for me, you know, Chief Luthuli was, if you look at his character, you know, he was a very, very disciplined man. He was very honest, really and truly dedicated to the liberation of black people, okay, in South Africa. And he worked most of his adult life for the ANC. He never received a single cent, not even a cent, from the ANC for all the work that he did, you know. And he did great work. A lot of people are actually not aware. I always say Chief Luthuli did 3 or 4 things for the struggle in this country. One, he turned the ANC into a mass movement rooted in the grassroots. Okay. Prior to him taking over in 1952 as President General, as they were called at the time, the ANC really was a small organization led by educated people who, you know, would write a letter to government, write a letter to London, complaining about this and that, and, you know, having meetings. He decided that no, for this organization to succeed and for our struggle to succeed, the ANC needed to be a mass-based organization. And you see that happening from 1952, the defiance campaigns start, you know. And that's when you get the Women's March to Pretoria, etc., etc. So that is his first contribution. The second one is the Freedom Charter, which he conceived together with Z.K. Matthews. Z.K. Matthews, by the way, is the grandfather of Minister Naledi Pandor. Yes. You know? The third thing is that he internationalized the South African struggle. A lot of people don't realize this. Prior to him being awarded the Nobel Prize, a lot of people around the world didn't quite know what was happening in South Africa.
Right, back with you here on In Focus. Still with us, Chief Albert Luthuli's grandson, Mthunzi Luthuli, who is, of course, responding to the decision now taken by the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services to reopen this inquest. It's interesting for the interest of justice, certainly, that it be reopened. But you're saying part of the bittersweet moment of it is the fact that in the 30 years of democracy, this particular organization, that is the ANC, has also done very little, I suppose, to recognize the contribution that the chief would have made.
Yeah, and that's arguable. You know, some people say, no, they have done quite a bit. My view is that it's, especially given where we are as a country now, is that the biggest contribution that the ANC government can make, or let's say in terms of honoring Chief Luthuli, is actually to use his leadership as an example of how people should lead. And of the type of character that a good leader should have. You know,
not in the lip service way in which they do it, as we are the generation of Chief Albert Luthuli, of Thabo, and so on and so forth.
No. Like I was saying earlier, you know, those people, they committed their lives, everything, you know, and they didn't expect anything in return. Chief Luthuli, like I say, he worked most of his adult life for the ANC. He never received a single cent. Number two, he did everything that the people and the NEC expected him to do. In other words, taking your task and your responsibilities seriously, you know, is extremely important. These days, we appoint ministers of housing. You know, they're in office for 5 or 10 years, and after that period, there's no houses. Yeah. If they have built a few, they are cracking and leaking. Yeah. You know, that's not taking your responsibilities seriously. Chief Luthuli remained in Groundville. He was rooted in his community. Even though he was known worldwide, and even though he traveled the country and traveled the world, he never left Groundville. He went back to his people because that's where his roots were. Now, again, this is very different from what we see today, or what we see leaders or the people who call themselves leaders do today. Yeah. What we have today, Thabo, is not, these are not leaders, most of them. They are politicians. And there is a difference between a politician and a leader. Yeah. People like Chief Luthuli and Julius Nyerere and all of those other great statesmen, they were leaders and they were statesmen. Big difference between those people and politicians.
So whenever we speak of apartheid crimes and TRC and Ahmed Timol and the likes, is of course a conversation that ends up with asking a question, what do you want at the end of it? Whether reparations is what you want, whether seeing those people that would have been involved behind bars, what would you want ultimately as a family?
Okay, ideally, okay, it's all of the above. Yeah. Okay. If you look at most places around the world where this has happened, you know, the Nuremberg trials, etc., you know, the perpetrators are found, they are prosecuted and if found guilty, imprisoned or whatever, you know, but there are consequences, okay? Also, the truth is very important, at least for the families of those who were killed. Yeah. You know, the truth is important. Right. I mean, there are families that don't even know where their loved ones are because they never even saw their bodies, you know. So that truth is important for closure. Okay. Reparations should also be part of the package. Yes. To this day, you know, Jews, when, you know, they can prove that this is what happened, they get paid. Okay. You know. Now, in South Africa, for some strange reason, and people think this was some, I don't know, visionary thing by Nelson Mandela and others, to me, it was wrong. You know, because what you're doing there is that you're not dealing with the issues properly. Right. You are simply just putting plaster, you know. And what ends up happening is that justice is not delivered, which is wrong. And in South Africa, it's been both political justice and economic justice. Simply has not. Yeah.
Luthuli, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming in and engaging us this evening. That's where we'll leave it for tonight. That is Mthunzi Luthuli, grandson to Chief Albert Luthuli there, responding to that inquest. One certainly will be watching very closely.